really worth it to get crochet stuff at the dollar store? Is it really a better deal? We're going to find out today. I grabbed some different yarns, crochet hooks, and some poly fiber fill. We're going to take those hooks for a test drive. We're going to make some swatches with the yarn, and we're really going to put it to the test. I even went to Michael's and grabbed some comparable things so we can just compare side by side. So let's see how Dollar Tree stacks up. Hi everyone, Brittany here from Just Be Crafty. If you're new here, welcome, and if not, thank you so much for coming back. In today's video, we are going to dive into the Dollar Tree. As you may know, the Dollar Tree has crochet items. They have crochet hooks. I actually even saw size 10 knitting needles. I did not grab those. I left those there. They did have a nice little selection of yarn. So I've got a pretty big bag here, and let's see everything that I got. I grabbed 3 different hooks. This is the packaging that it comes in, and so let's just take a look at these. So I'm just gonna pull them all out of their little containers so we can get a nice look. So this is what they look like. Each of these crochet hooks rang in at $1.25. This green color is the 4.5 millimeter. The next size up is this blue, and it's a 5 millimeter. And then the largest size I grabbed and that I saw at the store was a 5.5 millimeter. These were the 3 sizes that I saw, and quite honestly, that I most often use. And for beginners, I always highly suggest getting a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter hook. Looking at them visually, they do resemble the Clover Amour. However, these on camera may appear to be soft grip, but the handle is actually plastic. And the tops almost look like it's a brushed aluminum, but it's really not. It's just like a metal tip. The 5.5 millimeter one is actually quite rough, and you can see kind of visual imperfections in it, and rubbing your finger across it, you can feel that the front of the throat just isn't smooth. So I'm curious what under the little hook part of the crochet hook feels like, because if that's rough, that is definitely a no-go, because if it's rough under the little hook, then it will for sure snag your yarn. I will say the other 2 hooks, while it looks like they have some imperfections in the metal part, they are actually much smoother. It looks like the 5.5 millimeter hook, at least in the ones that I purchased, is actually quite smooth. I'm not seeing those visual imperfections quite as much, but both the 5 and the 4.5 millimeter don't really feel necessarily rough to the fingers, but I do feel a slight texture in the angled part of the throat. So that is something to note. The handle I do find very comfortable to hold. It has almost like where your thumb rests, it's actually quite flat and concaved a little bit. So this actually feels really good in my hand. I feel like it's also a nice length. The length is just ever so slightly shorter than my Clover Amour. I would say maybe 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch, I would say, in length shorter than this. So that's very minimal, but I am impressed that the hooks are actually in here square. So what you want to look at if you're looking for budget hooks, or any hooks for that matter, you don't want the metal hook portion to be crooked with the handle. You want to make sure that everything is in line and not to the side in either direction. And I'm actually quite impressed that these hooks are very well aligned. So I am really excited to give these a try. So those are my first impressions on the hooks, but we won't for sure know how they are until we actually do a swatch test with them. As for yarn, all that I saw at my Dollar Tree was the brand Premier. So for your standard craft yarn number 4 worsted weight acrylic, they have a yarn called Just Yarn. These were the 3 colors that they had. They did not have a wide variety of colors. They had blue, pink, and yellow, which are all beautiful colors, but this is your standard number 4 medium weight yarn, also known as worsted weight yarn. The color that I'm holding here is called Pale Pink. This yellow shade is just called Yellow, and then the blue one is called Turquoise. This is very comparable, I would say, to, it reminds me the most of Michael's Loops and Threads yarn. It's kind of like that thickness. It's nice and soft. These colors remind remind me of those, but obviously much smaller yardage. Each skein of yarn came in at $1.25. So for $1.25, you're getting 109 yards. So I'm curious to see how that compares with the Michaels yarn that is similar to this. The next yarn that I grabbed is Premier Just Yarn Teddy, and this one is a more fuzzy yarn. It kind of reminds me of a Muppet. This one didn't have a wide range of colors either. There were only 2 in this one, and the other color, it looked just like this, but it was like the shade of blue. I just couldn't see myself really doing much with this, so I only grabbed one skein just so I could show you today, and so that I could do a little swatch for you, because I am curious on how this could be worked up. But the best way that I could describe it is it really just reminds me of like a Muppet. This would be really cute if you were making some sort of plushie or I don't know, little animal. The only downside was that they just had those 2 colors. But anyway, again, this was $1.25, and for $1.25, you're getting, again, 109 yards. It's also 50 grams. And this one is also a number 4 medium weight yarn as well. The next yarn that I grabbed today was Premier Just Chenille. This was by far the largest color variety that they had. I did only grab this one ball, but they had a wide range of colors, which was really nice, and I was really glad to see. So this, if you're not familiar, this is like a velvety, chenille is a velvety texture yarn, and this one specifically, it's very velvety. There's a lot of yarns that are similar but kind of go a little bit more in the fleece direction. This leans more in the velvety direction. This is very similar to the yarn that I used in my knitted v-neck sweater pattern. This actually looks exactly like the color that I used as well. I really like this color too. For $1.25 of this yarn, you're getting 65 yards, and it weighs in at 50 grams. This yarn is considered a number 6 super bulky yarn, and it suggests let me see. And this one actually suggests an 8mm hook. So quite a large hook. I don't know if I would consider this super bulky. This kind of looks more like a number 5 bulky. But yeah, that's just my opinion. The color is called Light Mauve, which I think describes it quite well. It's just like this, a really pretty, actually I feel like lilac would be kind of just a really beautiful lilac color. It's very soft, and again, they had a really nice wide range of colors. I'm going to just crochet here right in front of you and share my thoughts as I go, and then I'm going to also do it on the table so you can see a close-up of what I'm doing. But I just thought that it would be a little bit more candid in sharing my first thoughts if I do it right here. So this yarn suggests using I imagine a 5 or a 5.5. This one suggests, okay, so for a crochet hook, this suggests a 5.5mm hook. So I'm going to go ahead and use that hook. It is the purple hook, and I'm just going to find my end. It's right here. And I'm just going to make my little foundation chain. And I feel like this test, because this is just quite no different than any other 100% acrylic number 4 medium weight yarn I've ever tried. What I more want to see is how the hook does. And okay, I'm definitely feeling some grabbing on the yarn. So after I'm getting the first couple chains in, it actually feels a lot smoother, and my hook isn't grabbing quite as much, but I do definitely see that texture. It's not a very smooth crochet hook experience. It almost feels like I'm crocheting with sandpaper. I will say I do feel that way just because I am so used to this brushed aluminum tip. So let's say you grabbed this hook to start and then you graduated to a hook like the Clover Amour, like this it will literally like knock your socks off for sure. Now, am I able to crochet? Can I make beautiful things with this hook? Absolutely. absolutely. I do think it's worth it to have decent tools, but can you do it with this hook? Oh my gosh, absolutely. So if you are on a tight budget and you want to learn how to crochet, don't let these hooks stop you. Even with that rough texture, this isn't pulling on my yarn. All right, so I did my foundation chain. Let's try to do, I want to try getting in a few stitches to see how I feel. Honestly, once I get a few stitches in and I've calibrated to this hook is honestly perfectly fine. I do find that where the thumb rest is, that's not where I actually put my finger, and I'm curious where I do. Well, I guess I don't on the Clover and More either. So I guess when I crochet, I kind of have my thumb more on top of where the visual thumb rest is on the hook, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if other people do that as well, but I feel like that flat thumb rest is a lot more gradual and less prominent on the Clover and More than it is on this Dollar Tree hook. And I understand it's not really fair to compare those two, but that's just what I use the most. But it's almost like that thumb rest, I don't really put my thumb in there, and it kind of just feels like this could just really be filled in, but honestly it just really doesn't. It really doesn't bother me. So I just want to get a few more stitches in to really gather my thoughts here. All right, so I've gotten a few more stitches in, and yeah, I feel like you're going to be able to do any sort of technique that you need to do with these hooks. There's definitely nothing fancy about them, nothing luxurious about them. I do appreciate the colors. I do love to have pretty colors in my hooks. I just love to see pretty colors. That's just how I am. Yeah, I feel like there's nothing that you can't do with these crochet hooks, and I feel like there's nothing inherently wrong with them. I don't think I would go out of my way to grab these though. These aren't like a holy grail hook that I'm like, oh my God, you need to run out and grab these or anything like that. But I do think that if you are very budget conscious, you want to spend under $2 on a crochet hook, I do think that this is a really great option. But yeah, I'm gonna ponder on these a little bit, and I'm going to share more of my thoughts later in the video. Another thing to note is that when you use a certain crochet hook for a really long time, I do think that you get used to the weight of the specific crochet hook that you're using, especially if you're sitting there, you're doing repetitive stitches over and over again. I'm used to the weight of this hook, which has a little bit, I feel like this has a little bit more weight to it. But I'm switching over to my Clover and More hook. Yeah, I just feel like I'm able to control my tension a little bit better in this, but I don't know if it's necessarily the hook or if it is just because I'm used to the Clover and More, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so as I'm working with it a little bit more, I just keep finding that it's kind of sliding out of my hands. And I don't know if it's so much the hook or if it's just that I'm not used to this particular hook. But I do tend to like a little bit more weight to my hooks. I mean, you don't want it to be too heavy or anything like that, but you do want there to be a little bit of weight in it, just to kind of, I feel like when the hook has a little bit more weight to it, it kind of helps with the movement. I don't know, it's kind of like the momentum of the hook, or like a pendulum swing type thing, like when you're bowling. I don't know, I feel like that's super exaggerated, but it's kind of a similar thing. Definitely finding that my stitches just aren't going quite as smooth, and I'm kind of like, will drop a loop or drop my hook, but I mean, that happens with my Clover and Mores as well. It's just kind of like hand placement. And I actually can notice the shortness and depth of this hook. So like I had said before, that this hook is like 1/8 of an inch shorter than the Clover and More, and I think I can actually really tell that small measurement is actually making a huge difference of where it sits on the back of my hand. Okay, so yeah, this is my 5.5mm Clover and More. It's about 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch longer, which doesn't sound like it would make a big difference, but it actually does. I like the crochet hook to stick out of here just a little bit, just so it has, yeah, see how this hook sticks out a little bit down here? I feel like I have more control when it does that. This one, however, doesn't. Do you see, like, it doesn't stick out past my hand, where this one does, just like ever so slightly. And that actually makes a huge difference. Now, if your hands are smaller than mine, then I wear, like, I would say a medium-sized glove. So if your hands are smaller than mine, maybe you would prefer a shorter hook like this. Obviously, personal preference. But yeah, I think even despite the roughness, kind of once you get going on it, it kind of rubs off any of the little burrs that are in the metal in those first couple of chains. So kind of once I started going a little bit more, it definitely did get a little smoother. However, I definitely see those imperfections in the throat of the hook, and it's just not a smooth, buttery experience like you would get with the Clover and Moors. However, like I said, I do think it's a perfectly fine hook. I think you could definitely learn to crochet with these. I think you could definitely make some beautiful things with these. Are they worth it to grab? I don't know. We're definitely going to have to do some price comparisons at the end of this video. This yarn, so this is the Just Yarn Teddy. This one actually recommends a 5mm hook, so I am going to go ahead and grab that. Whoops. So the 5mm hook is this blue one, and this one was much smoother than the other. This one's actually giving me a quite better crochet experience than the 5.5mm. Yeah, this one actually feels quite better. This one didn't have, like, I do see like a little bit of texture in the throat, but it's not like, and I can feel the texture too, but I wouldn't call it rough. The 5.5mm one definitely felt rough, but this one feels much smoother. And I'd also be curious to see if maybe these just are inconsistent. So if you're there and you're hunting for hooks, maybe just kind of feel all the throats of them and see if you can find the smoothest one, because that might make that would make a huge difference too. I didn't do that when I was there. I didn't really take a good look at that. I just grabbed them kind of like how a normal shopper would. So yeah, but I'm actually quite impressed with this one. This one seems to be, the 5mm one is working just fine. And the length of this one doesn't really seem to be bothering me either, which is odd. These are exactly the same height, so I don't know why the length is bothering me more in the larger hook. I'm not really sure, that's weird. But yeah, as I'm going, the length is not bothering me. I feel like I'm having a pretty smooth crochet experience. And as we all know, crocheting into the foundation chain, like the first row of a project, is always the worst. It's just the worst part of a crochet project. I feel like it's the same way with knitting too. It's those first like couple rows that are just like the absolute worst. I do feel like this yarn is kind of growing on me though. It does actually crochet up quite pretty. And I'm just doing single crochets for this. I did half double crochets in the other yarn. This one I'm doing just single crochets. I do feel like this yarn would be super cute for like some sort of little stuffed animal, or like maybe a little stuffed heart or something, like a pillow. It's quite soft. It's very soft, and I think it's what is it? Oh, this is 62% acrylic and 38% polyester. So yeah, this is actually quite cute. And like I said before, it's still really feeling like like it just really reminds me of the Muppets. It's just like that texture. But yeah, as I'm going, I'm actually really liking this yarn. I think it's really cute, and I just kind of wish that they had more colors. Unfortunately, they just had this pink and that blue color. I think maybe if they had some other colors, more inspiration would come to me. I really like this a lot more than I thought that I would. This would make actually like a really cute sweater or a cardigan, or I feel like it would just make a really cute collar. Like if you did like a little cardigan and then had this as the collar and then as the wrist cuffs, I think that that would be super, super cute. Kind of reminds me of like Legally Blonde, Elle Woods and Legally Blonde or something like that. It's actually a lot of fun. It's funny because this was my least favorite yarn of the pick. And it's funny because it's actually turning out to be my favorite. But yeah, my swatch is super soft. And yeah, I actually have no complaints. And I feel like the 5mm hook did a really good job with this as well. Let's switch to the 4.5mm hook. This one was actually the smoothest of the 3 that I purchased. So I imagine that this one would feel exactly the same. And it does. This is honestly, it's just as smooth or maybe even just a little bit smoother than the 5mm. So I have absolutely no complaints about the 4.5 or the 5mm. I'm disappointed with the 5.5mm though. That one was definitely the roughest. So I'd be really curious to see if all of the 5.5mm were like this, or if it was just the one that I grabbed. Now going into the third yarn that I grabbed, this is the Just Chenille yarn. So I am going to go ahead and find my little yarn end, and we're going to make a little swatch of this as well, if I can find that end. And like I said before, this is classified as a number 6 super bulky. I don't know that I necessarily agree. I feel like this seems more like a number 5 bulky, but that might just be my opinion. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. It does recommend using an 8mm hook. They did not have an 8mm hook there. But I'm just going to use the 5.5mm and test it out with this yarn. And yeah, it's working perfectly fine. And I have no complaints about this yarn, at least not with the foundation chain that I'm making. Very normal. This looks very pretty. Yeah, this color definitely looks exactly like the Lion brand the luxe yarn that I used for my knitted sweater. This looks literally exactly like it. It might be a little bit fuller. That yarn was characterized as a number 4 medium weight yarn. And I do think that the velvet in it was much less dense. Yeah, this velvet yarn is just so pretty and it's so soft. This would be such a nice scarf. Anything made with this would be super fun. But what actually came to mind when I was at the store was I've seen a lot of amigurumi type projects. Well, I don't make a lot of amigurumi. I have seen a lot of projects that use this like chenille type yarn, and they look so cute. And they had so many different colors at Dollar Tree that I think that that would be maybe like the winner there. Where I am thinking the Dollar Tree will likely win, because I have a feeling per yard, this yarn is probably doesn't stack quite up, but I'm not sure because we haven't done those comparisons yet. But that is kind of what I'm guessing we're going to find. I do want to mention though, if you are making stuff like amigurumi, like little items that maybe would use a lot of different colors, but you don't need much of one color, that I think is where the Dollar Tree is going to shine for yarn purchasing, because sometimes it's annoying to buy a big skein of yarn and only use to buy like a full skein of yarn, and you use just like the smallest amount for certain projects and then it's just sitting on your shelf forever. That can be kind of frustrating. That comes in a smaller yardage, and so there's definitely less waste, which is very, very nice. But again, you can definitely feel that texture there from this 5.5mm hook. There's no denying it. So that's one thing to note, that if you are learning to crochet and you're like, I really want to try those Dollar Tree hooks, go for it. But just know that when you graduate to a new hook, that texture you're feeling is just not the same. So let me switch to my 5.5mm hook, my Clover Amour, just to compare. Yeah, I'm getting absolutely no texture. I don't feel any sort of texture on my hook with this yarn at all. It kind of just glides in like butter. So yeah, so if you're just learning to crochet and you pick these up, know that there are better hooks out there, but there's definitely no shame in grabbing these hooks. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these hooks. But yeah, it's giving me a nice swatch. I'm happy with this yarn. I'm happy enough with these hooks. This yarn is really pretty. It has a nice drape, and I'm definitely not mad at it. All right, so the next and final thing that I purchased from Dollar Tree was polyfill. And so I was actually super surprised to find this name brand polyfill at the Dollar Tree. This is a 10.5-ounce bag, and this was $3. So I do want to check and see how much I could get for that at Michael's. I want to know if that is actually cheaper. I feel like that is actually a really great deal. One thing to note, there's of course no coupons or whatever at Dollar Tree. I do want to also mention that my Dollar Tree, not everything is $1.25 anymore. There's a lot of things that are much over. So there were some things that I saw in there, I'm like, oh wow, that's $1.25? And no, it's $7. And I'm like, what? Anyway, I think that that's been going on for quite a while, but I was very happy to see that polyfill for $3 because I feel like that's just something that I will run out of, and I always just like to have it on hand. So that will be nice to have in my closet and ready for whenever I need it. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that stacks up with Michael's. I will have to look that up online though, because I didn't purchase any when I was at Michael's. But anyway, without further ado, let's test this stuff. Let's test the comparable items to the stuff that I bought at Michael's. So I actually bought a bunch of stuff at Michael's. Not everything was to be compared. Some stuff is actually for future tutorials. The first thing that I grabbed from Michael's were these crochet hooks. These are the Loops and Threads ergonomic aluminum crochet hook set. It comes with a 4.5mm, a 5mm, 5.5mm, and a 6mm hook. All right, so this set was $17.99. If you bought them individually, each of these hooks were $7.99. However, if you divide $17.99 by 4 hooks, you get $4 and basically $4.50. So it is definitely a deal to grab the set instead of grabbing them one at a time. So let's take a look at these crochet hooks. These have a nice ergonomic rubber handle on them. It's very comfortable to hold. The bottom of the handle is actually textured. It's not smooth. It's kind of like ribbed almost looking. And it has a nice satisfying feel in my hand. It has a flat spot on the front and back where your thumb rests. And then the tip is just a metal tip. And the size of the hook is printed in the metal on the throat, which is interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Rubbing my finger on it, I do feel, well, not my finger. I don't really feel it rubbing my finger on it. I do feel it rubbing my nail on it. So I am curious to see if I can tell a difference. Looking at it, the angled parts, I do see a little bit of texture. Let me see if the other ones are the same way. I do see a little bit of texture there in the angled part of the throat. However, I wouldn't say it feels rough. I can feel the texture a little bit rubbing my finger on it. For comparison, the Clover Amour doesn't have any texture at all. It doesn't feel rough to the touch. I can feel I could just feel some imperfections. That's not necessarily a deal breaker or anything. I will say these have a nice weight to them. Yeah, these have a nice weight to them. Definitely more than these. These are very, very light. Like I said before, I kind of like having a hook that has a little bit of weight to it. I will definitely do a more in-depth review on these just so I can tell you more about them. These are also 3.5 times the price of the Dollar Tree hooks, so you will want to keep that in mind. These hooks all look like they are in line, which is good. I will say the seam at the top where the metal hits the ergonomic grip, the ergonomic grip part is not smooth. Like it's not, the part where the ergonomic handle meets the metal, it's not really per se where you put your hand, but you can see it. It just looks like just where the seal was, or where like kind of the rubber is just not smooth. It's like, it's kind of roughed up. It's not a clean cut of the handle where it kind of slides onto the hook. I mean, I don't know. It's not really visually appealing. And so for these to be 3.5 times the price of the Dollar Tree, it's like, are these really that much better? I'm not really sure. So I would like to give these a little bit of a test. I was using the 5.5mm hook. Let me see. Yeah, so these, the Michaels ones, they are a little bit longer, a good, I would say 1/4 of an inch actually. These do crochet quite smoother as well. I will also say too, I don't feel where they have the measurement of the hook printed like I thought I was going to, but I definitely don't feel any sort of texture when I crochet with them. I do feel like the handle is quite interesting, and I kind of like the way that it feels in my hand. I'm not going to lie. I actually kind of like these hooks a little bit more than I thought. It's funny because when I saw them in the store, I was like, oh my gosh, $17.99 for this set. I feel like there is no way that these are better than the Dollar Tree ones. I thought the Dollar Tree ones were totally going to win. But I actually kind of like the way the handle feels in my hand. It kind of gets really skinny and then fatter at the bottom. And I actually really like the way that feels. I don't know if it's just the way that I crochet that I really quite enjoy that, but yeah, it just feels very comfortable to hold in my hand. So I'm actually kind of surprised that I liked these. I do want to do a bit more of a deeper dive of these. I do have a crochet hook video coming soon. Only one of the sets came in on Amazon. I have more hooks coming in, and I'm excited to do those. So I might include these hooks in that hook comparison video. These could be a sleeper. I'm actually quite surprised. So stay tuned on that. Next up was the yarn. The most comparable yarn that I could find at Michael's is the Loops and Threads Soft Classic yarn. It is a number 4 medium weight yarn. This is the color Coral. I didn't grab a comparable color because I am going to be using this in a different project. And I think you've probably seen a lot of pale pink colors. I know that I have personally used a lot of blue colors just like this. I can't find that yarn. Oh, I already had this on hand. These are very similar in color, not the same by any means, but they're very similar. But I just found that, I just thought that this one was a very similar yarn. So the price breakdown of this is $3.99 for this skein. For $3.99, you're getting how many yards? 354 yards, and it weighs in at 198 grams. It's a higher price point, but you're getting quite a bit more yardage for the cost. So I'm curious to do that price breakdown. The next skein that I grabbed with the most comparable yarn, it looks honestly exactly the same. Loops and Threads Cuddle Craft Velvet. This is color Lavender Fog, and that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a really pale pink, almost leaning purple color. It is almost a similar color to this, but just a very lightened shade. So up next to each other, they look exactly the same. This one is listed as a number 5 bulky weight yarn, which I do find which I do feel like this one should, the Dollar Tree one should be categorized as well. But yeah, this is like that same velvety type yarn. It's super soft and it looks really great in plushies. And actually on the label, there is a really cute little plushie on the label, which I think this yarn is perfect for. This skein came in at $6.99. So I did want to mention that Michaels does a lot of times have coupons. So it's a really good idea to get the app. They usually always have coupons on there. I feel like there was a while, maybe when they acquired Joann's, it was that last summer or last year? I don't even remember when that was. I feel like time is just not even a real thing anymore. It's just everything is kind of just like flowing together. But anyway, I feel like there was a really big dry spell with coupons. And then now lately, I feel like Michaels has a ton of coupons. I don't know if it's just the time of year or what, who knows? I guess we're just coming off of Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, I'm not really sure, but I do want to include that those were the full prices. I did have some coupons. So the crochet hook set, I actually ended up purchasing for $12.23. So that takes the hooks down to, so that actually took the hooks down to about $3 a piece. This yarn that was $3.99, this yarn right here, that is full price $3.99. I ended up getting for $2.90. And then this skein that came in at $6.99, I ended up getting it for $5.07. So, you know, they don't have those coupons all the time. So when we do our number breakdown, I will include both the sale and non-sale prices. So let's get into the actual financial breakdown. So again, each thing from the Dollar Tree rang in at $1.25. My total Dollar Tree receipt, which included 4 crochet hooks, a 10.5 ounce bag of polyfill, and then I got 3 balls of Just Yarn Worsted, 1 ball of Just Yarn Teddy, and 1 ball of Just Chenille. And that total came to, before tax, it came to $13. After tax, it was $13.78. So that was my grand total. Let me add up, because I bought some extra stuff from Michaels. So I'm just going to go ahead and add up really quick what my total was from Michaels. Okay, so from Michaels, I had bought those 2 skeins of yarn, the Soft Classic and then the chenille yarn, plus the set of 4 crochet hooks. That grand total came to $28.98. But what I actually paid with the sale, I only ended up paying $20.20 for the items at Michaels. So I did have a couple of coupons. I had a $5 voucher that was applied, and then, which would be different for everyone. That's like kind of like the rewards you earn back from purchases. Yeah, so there was a 20% off the entire total, and then there was also an additional 25% off of 1 item. So that is something to keep in mind there. So that brought my total down to $20.20. At full price, it would have been $28.97. And with those coupons, it was $20.20. So I want to take a look at the yarn specifically. Okay, so I crunched some of the numbers and it's actually really interesting. So as we already know, the hooks are actually cheaper. We already discussed that. So each of the crochet hooks, these were each $1.25 a piece. The crochet hooks from Michaels, this entire set was $17.99. If you purchased them individually, they would cost you $7.99 each. At full price, you get $4.50 per hook, and the sale price that I actually paid for them, because I only paid $12 and some change for this hook set, and divided out by 4, that is about $3 per hook. Because not everyone's going to have the sale, though they do typically have a coupon, I'm not going to count the sale for this. So this came in at $1.25 and these come in at $4.50 a piece. but again, you would have to buy the whole set to get them at that. Otherwise, you would have to spend $7.99 per hook. So I would say it's hard to say. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. In this scenario, I don't really know that there's an exact winner here. Now, if you are looking for a hook, you do not want to spend like any more than $2 on a hook. This is definitely a really great place to start. These weren't terrible hooks by any means, but they are also not a Cadillac. For not that much more, you could definitely upgrade, but if you're going to put in any more money, I don't know that these ones would be the ones that I suggest to do. But just looking at side-by-side comparisons, Dollar Tree wins for the actual cost. When it comes to yarn though, that's where things get a little interesting. And let me glance at my numbers. So for the Dollar Tree, just yarn worsted yarn, that comes into $1.15 per 100 yards. With the Michaels Soft Classic yarn, this comes into, at full price, this comes into as $1.13 per 100 yards. So the just yarn is actually just ever so it's just 2 more cents per 100 yards more expensive than what you get at Michaels. However, what I paid for it and what with the sale price, this ended up being 82 cents per 100 yards. So remember, the full skein of this yarn from Michaels is 354 yards. So you are paying a little bit more, but the cost per yard is actually cheaper at Michaels. So that is something to keep in mind. Next, we're going to look at the chenille yarn. So for the chenille yarn, the Dollar Tree charges basically $1.92 per 100 yards. These come in less than 100 yards, so that's why they are at $1.25 price point. And the one from Michaels rings in at full price $6.53 per 100 yards. So the yardage that you get for this is 107 yards. It's just over 100 yards. So this one is actually more expensive. I don't remember if I talked about the composition of the yarn. This is, I believe, the yarn from Michaels, the Cuddle Craft Velvet is 100% polyester. The Just Chenille yarn is also 100% polyester. So they are both 100% polyesters. It's essentially the same yarn. This one, however, is more expensive. So this is actually kind of what I thought. So, and then I didn't really see a comparison for this yarn. However, I would imagine that it would be very similar to the Just Yarn Worsted. It comes in the same yardage and the same, yeah, this comes in, it's 109 yards per ball, and it is a 50-gram ball, which is exactly the same as the Just Yarn Worsted. So I would imagine if you saw something similar at Michaels, it would probably be a similar price point comparison, but I just didn't see anything today when I was walking around. So I didn't get a comparison for this one. But I do want to mention the sale price though that I did get for the Michaels one. This one actually rang in at $4.74 for 100 yards. So this one did come, it was a little bit cheaper, however, still higher than the $1.92 price point from Dollar Tree. So that is definitely where I say Dollar Tree might be worth it for you. If you love this chenille yarn, you enjoy making things with it. It did come in a nice wide variety of colors, which I was really impressed with. The other yarn lines just didn't. Like I said before, I had purchased all the colors that they had in the Just Yarn Worsted, and then for the Teddy line, they only had one other color. It was the blue color. So one thing that's really nice about these, like if you are making something with amigurumi and you like to use this velvet chenille yarn, this is really great because you don't have to buy such large quantities. So not only do you have to buy a larger quantity at a place like Michaels, it also just costs more per yard. Here you can get smaller balls. If you're making smaller things, you have less yarn waste and you can get way more colors. which to me is just a lot more value for your dollar. So that is definitely where Dollar Tree shines. Like I said, Dollar Tree shines in the value of the hooks. For $1.25, I think these are actually excellent hooks. The only one that I had a little issue with is the 5.5mm hook, and I just feel like it feels a little bit rougher. The first couple chains I made, it felt a little scratchy, but once I got past those first few chains, it honestly was fine. Would this give you the most smooth ride and Cadillac experience of your life? Absolutely not. But if you're on a budget and you're looking for a crochet hook, this is a really great place to start. If you are on the fence and don't know if you want to get into crochet or not, this is a really great place to start. If you're just very budget conscious and you're like, I don't want to spend $10 on a hook, don't. Grab this from Dollar Tree. They're really cute. They come in really pretty colors. The next thing that I want to mention is also thinking about not just kind of value, but also where Dollar Tree lacks is they just don't have the selection that you would have if you would go to Walmart or Michael's or any sort of big box craft store. The selection just isn't there, and I think it probably ranges widely at each store. This store that I went to, I don't know if I mentioned, it's a brand new store. It's a beautiful store. It's still very nice and neat. A lot of Dollar Trees aren't like that. I have Dollar Trees in my area that are definitely not like that, but this is definitely a larger store, and because it is brand new, it's still very organized, which I do appreciate. But again, the selection just isn't there. If you are just getting started with crochet and you are at the dollar store and just want to grab a few things, one thing to mention is they just don't have, like, the other two things that I feel like you would really want to get are, obviously need a crochet hook, obviously need yarn. The next thing you would need is scissors, which Dollar Tree has. And then the third thing that you'll need are stitch markers. They don't have specific stitch markers at the Dollar Tree, but you can get creative. You could grab bobby pins. I don't know if I would suggest that unless you absolutely had to, but I imagine you can get safety pins at Dollar Tree. And safety pins would work just well. You just have to be careful. You know, of course, they're sharp and pointy. But one thing that the Dollar Tree doesn't have, and that is a yarn needle. And let me grab one. A yarn needle like this. This to me is imperative, and it's something that you absolutely need even if you are just learning to crochet and you never crocheted before. It is very important to get one of these, and it's just kind of annoying because they don't have those at Dollar Tree. It's like, how many places do you want to have to run? I just feel like for convenience sake, maybe going to some place like Michael's or Walmart or a big box craft store is just a little better because they're going to have absolutely everything that you need. You don't really need to get creative with stuff. They have the yarn needles, they have the stitch markers, and they just have a wider variety of selections. And while I don't know that I would necessarily grab these hooks instead of these are just the ones that I picked up because I felt like they were the most comparable. At Michael's, they're going to have more higher end hooks that are maybe a little bit better value for your dollar. And if they have any sort of coupons, especially that 40% or 50% off coupon, you could get a really nice hook that is about $8 to $10 for $4 to $5, which is really excellent as well. It really kind of depends on what you're looking for. I feel like Dollar Tree actually did quite a good job in making Michael's kind of giving Michael's a little bit of run for its money. But yeah, so I will let you decide kind of what you think. Now, will I shop at Dollar Tree for my crochet needs? Probably not. It's honestly just, unless I'm doing kind of like a fun video, not to say that there's anything wrong with Dollar Tree or anything. I just have more options in my area, and a lot of times I do feel that just going to Michael's, I will get a better deal than by going to Dollar Tree. You know, everybody's different. Some people, maybe the Dollar Tree is the only thing that they have in their town. And if that's the case, that's great because you're going to be able to get started on crochet and do whatever you need to. I am curious, have you used these hooks? Have you used Dollar Tree yarn? What are your thoughts? Make sure you leave them down in the comments below. I would love to hear. One thing I do want to mention as well is every Wednesday at 5 p.m. we have a crochet night. So that is 30 minutes or however long the video is of uninterrupted crochet time for you to just come, hang out, and relax, and I answer your questions. So if you are interested in participating in crochet night, all you have to do is either join me at 5, or you can submit a question. I will have the form linked in the description box below. You can go ahead and submit your question and I will attempt to answer it in a future week. So I really hope you stop by and hang out for those crochet nights. They're not live, they are pre-recorded, so I will say that. I do hope to have them live someday, but currently they are pre-recorded. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a reminder. So mark your calendars for 5 o'clock on Wednesday night, and it's crochet night. So I look forward to seeing you there. I really hope you found today's video helpful. If you did, please let me know by giving the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and would like to, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!